welcome back to All for United, guys. It's Monday again, and it's anything goes. And I've got Mick, John, Alex, and Mr. Tony here to talk about all the relevant news. Obviously, we had a bit of I suppose, a positive draw over the weekend against Chelsea. Got West Ham coming up next. Obviously, we've got the midweek game as well against Sheriff, but there's a lot to be positive about at the minute. We're going in for a top four place. We're not far behind Newcastle of all teams, believe it or not. But we've got some really, really positive news to talk about. I think we're on the up, and today's all about Ten Hag's rebuild, and do we feel he's finally getting and turning that corner in terms of what he wanted to do in the pre-season and what he was talking about in the beginning of the season. So without further ado, we'll come to John first on his topic, and his topic's about the top six teams, or the kind of big six. We've played the big six, John, in terms of what you'd consider as a big six.
Yeah.
And we're the only team to do it this season so far, getting 10 points. So do you want to sort of intro that, mate, and we'll talk about the top four challenge?
Thank you. I just wanted to raise it as a topic because obviously we played 11 games so far in the league this season, and obviously 5 of those fixtures been against the traditional top 6, and which is like almost half the games, isn't it? And of course we had a couple of games postponed due to the Queen's death and everything, but I just think the 5 games we have seen, we've obviously won all our home games against Tottenham, Arsenal, and Liverpool, and obviously we know about City. Yes, it wasn't good, but what has pleased me about those 5 games, more specifically aside from the City game, we've actually played well in those games, and it's not just that we've been picking up results, it's our general performances have been that we have deserved those results. I personally felt in the first half, it comes down to the lack of clinical edge, why we haven't won all our games in that this season, and we should have won by more, and we should have been ahead at half-time the other night. But what's pleasing, particularly with Tottenham-Chelsea game, is for the whole of the Tottenham game and more so in the first half against Chelsea, we controlled the tempo, we controlled the game, we forced Chelsea's manager, I can't remember what his name is. Potter, of course. And he was forced to make a change on the half-hour mark to bring Chalobah, wasn't it, off, and bring Kovacic on. And I just think the way we've showed ourselves in those 5 games, or except the City one, we've showed ourselves to be very competitive, and that the question I have now is that because the other teams, the top 6, still have to play each other, so I'm looking at it and thinking we're 1 point behind on the top 4 at the moment, but we played all the teams around them, and there are teams just above us who will still have to play each other, and I think we're in perhaps a good position potentially to challenge, for the top 4 if we can, because we'll now have a load of fixtures against, the non-top 6, as it were, and I think 9 of our 11 fixtures have been against sides in the top 11, which is interesting. So the question is really, do you think that it's good that we've got those games out of the way and we've done well and we can look with confidence these games, or is it that maybe because we have lost at Brentford, we drew with Newcastle, I know they're high up at the moment, but they've had a good start, or is it that maybe the tougher test is to come potentially against these smaller teams, as it were, when they will put more of a block, and that I just thought we might raise that with the panel.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, John. I don't want to disregard the first couple of games of the season, but clearly over the last few, Ten Hag's figured something out. And I think, Casemiro getting a little bit of fitness and understanding the Premier League a little bit. Obviously, he's got a long way to go. But obviously those first couple of games now under his belt, and he looks a different. I mean, the weekend he looked a different player completely. He's been a big addition to that team. He's figuring it out a little bit. Shaw sort of coming back into the side, getting some level of fitness. All those kind of things. Dalot's picked his game up even further, I feel, as well. And I think the situation with Bruno as well, where he played Bruno kind of on his own, kind of was a big difference as well, difference maker in some of the games that he's played. So definitely, John. I don't want to disregard that completely. I think what you said there in terms of control and how we're sort of grasping these games now is a lot better. Early on in the season, it didn't feel like we did that. We went into every game wondering what sort of performance we were going to deliver. But now I feel like when we go into a game, we're going to almost dominate the game, or at least control it in patches. So it's definitely a lot better. I mean, looking at the teams around us, or just looking at Chelsea, who are a similar sort of side in terms of where they want to be at for their ambitions this season. They've got some big games coming up. They've got a couple of Champions League games in between some big Premier League ones. They've got Brighton, Arsenal, Man City, and then Newcastle. Oh, God knows where they're going to finish up at the end of the season. So, yeah, big ambitions. Alex, Mick, we'll come round to you, mate, because your topic will be next. But Alex, just want to get your views on kind of what John said there in regards to the fact that we've played some of these big teams. Our season, hopefully, then we'll get, in theory, we'll be playing a lot of the lesser teams. Is top four a realistic kind of ambition? And what's your general feelings on it?
I think, considering we've probably had one of the more harder starts to the season in terms of fixtures. On obviously, 100%. The thing is, football's not played on paper, so but on paper we've had sort of a harder run of fixtures. So to come out of that and be in a position where we're 1 point off, 1 point off Chelsea, 1 off Newcastle, 3 off Tottenham. We've got a game in hand on Newcastle and Tottenham. Considering the run of fixtures and the fact that we seem to, as you've sort of alluded to, we seem to have sort of got to grips with what Ten Hag wants from the team, and we sort of know what level of performance we're going to get. So we're sort of coming into form probably at the right time, where we're going to be playing teams that are, if you'd said to us at the start of the season, you get through all these games, you play all the top 5, or the big 5, the big 5, if you want to call it, if you want to call it that, and you come out of that with 10 points, 3 wins, a draw, and you only lose to City, I think we'd have all been biting people's hands off and going, yeah, we'll take that. So, that's definitely a positive. Obviously, where we've come unstuck in the past is in the games where we're expected to win and there's the low block. And that's sort of where we've come unstuck in the past. You think of, obviously we've come a lot, you think back to Ollie's time in charge. We performed really well in the big games, mostly. Think of the performances, the wins that we got against City, against Chelsea, whatnot. And then it was always in those other games that we came unstuck. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. I think the big thing for us is, we've got, I think it's West Ham, Fulham and Aston Villa in the league before the World Cup break. So I think the biggest thing for us is if we can try and go on a run and try and pick up the maximum 9 points from those games and go, because I think if we can, then we'll put ourselves in a really good position going into the second half of the season and sort of, just set us up for, I think top 4 is well and truly on, and hopefully maybe a cup on the side of that would be nice. I think that would be, I think I'd describe that as the perfect season. If we get top 4 and win a trophy, I'd probably say it's the perfect first season for Ten Hag.
Yeah, it's funny how the season seems to be sort of up and down, doesn't it? A little bit. We started off kind of less optimistic than we are now, but it seems like we have turned a massive corner these last couple of weeks. Mr. Tom, nice to see you, mate. What's kind of your views on that? Do you sort of agree with Alex that well, and John, I suppose that we should be looking at top 4 now, especially considering you're looking at what Newcastle are doing at the minute. Surely we've got to be looking at top 4, haven't we? Now,
I've said on the channel from the start of the season, and I'm not going to change even that first couple games in. There's an opportunity for top 4. I don't understand why our fans wouldn't think there's an opportunity for top 4. I said it at the time. Spurs are not looking great. They're very well open. This is what I'm saying. I've been saying this. Liverpool doesn't look like it's their season. Arsenal, they've never shown me they can get across the finish line in the last how many years. You know what I mean? So obviously we know what Man City is. Chelsea probably might get in the top 4, but they're going through a phase with a new manager implementing his style, his patterns of play, and I can see them. And you saw it against us. He's still making tweaks. He's having to adjust on the fly. So there's an opportunity. I don't understand why our fans wouldn't think we can't get top 4. Like, barring Man City and probably Arsenal, because they've had a manager for a long time, implementing his way of play for a while. Why would you not think we can't get a top 4? I don't understand. I've been saying it. There's an opportunity there. There is an opportunity. Plus, our manager, currently Ten Hag, talks about every game. He goes into every game to win it. Every tournament to win it. Game and tournament. So he's not trying for draws or nothing like that. Even, I don't know if anyone saw the clip when Luke Shaw was doing kick-ups and he was shouting up Luke Shaw to get out the other end because we want to win the game in the last minute. Like, that's the mentality of this manager. So I don't, like, top 4 should be a standard. And he made that clear in his first interview, is to make this club European proof. Every year, top 4. That's what he made that statement. So that's he's telling us fans what the aims are this season. So I don't think, why shouldn't we get?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's your biggest, Mick? What I guess you agree with that. What's your views on it? And generally, what do you think is the biggest risk to us not achieving that this year?
No, not at all. I agree with Mr. Tony and everything that he said. I mean, I've been very positive and vocal about this. This is a cultural rebuild. The way I see it, he started with a blank piece of canvas. He came in, any gaffer that comes in, starts with a blank piece of paper, In fact, that they offered Ragnick to stay and consult. He said, no, I want to have full control. So that's what we typically see. He started with a blank piece of canvas. He assessed his squad. He had a bucket of paint with different colors. He started with his brush strokes, painting on the canvas. He saw what was gelling, what was not sticking. And based on that, what we've seen is a sort of it's a manager that is a tracksuit manager. I agree with Mr. Tony saying, has a very proven pedigree of a winning mentality. We've clearly seen that. He was very adamant in the beginning that he made a list, of strict rules that the player has to adhere. And what we've seen here is that just taking it back that, certain pundits and ex-players wanted Pochettino, but I'm proud of the club. They actually the right footballing decision by appointing the next, I always call him the prodigy of Sir Alex Ferguson, because the way we are seeing is that the swagger is back. The cultural rebuild is for real. This is the third rebuild that we're going through. It's starting to rub off the way he's playing in terms of its Erik Ten Hag way or the highway. The hairdryer is obviously back. It's Sir Alex went to his old cupboard and dusted it off and gave it to Eric and say, here you go, son. It works. Use it in halftime, And it's obviously working. The fighting spirit is there. I mean, the fan base is starting to get on board. I get it. We all suffered from that PTSD of 6 years of not winning a trophy. But the belief is starting to grow slowly. It's rubbing off. Just the application of him recruiting the right type of mentality people in terms of applying that application, we can just see on Lisandro Martinez that played under him. That is clearly like a leader and becoming sort of a captain material. We're going to talk about later on as well. But in terms of Anthony Dos Santos, it's so important that he brought in players that he managed before that understands the Erik Ten Hag way. And they sort of kind of become the ambassadors off the pitch as well. You can clearly see that, in terms of how Martinez is kind of grabbing, the game by the scruff of the neck. Apparently it's reported that he's vocal
as well.
It's with the fans as well. I mean, it's reported coming from the dressing room. There's no more leaks. It's a harmonious squad. So for me, it's sad to see that, you know, we fan base finally getting united. Like, it's been so on social media, it's been so twisted, like, you know, it's fickling, like, you know, it's been divided, you know. It's understandable, you know, Glazonomics, yes, but you can clearly see that he has full control. Like, you know, wherever Ten Hag wants, you know, Murta gets, and there's even talks of bringing in, you know, Van den Sar over January. So I don't know how much that is in, but in general, I'm just very excited. What has saddened me is to see that in all of this positivity, the wins that we are experienced, that we played all these top 5, top 6, we generate some really good football, and that's what we want to see, right? We've been deprived for years of seeing this pragmatic football, too many chops and changes. Mourinho 2-3 years, then Oli, then Ragnick. It hasn't been consistent enough, but finally we're seeing, you know, partnerships taking place. Like, you know, we are solidifying that back four, which is probably one of the best back fours that we're seeing in the Prem at the moment. You know, people were slagging off Martinez for being 175 centimeters, like a hobbit, blah, blah, blah. But who's laughing now, right? I'm proud of that we actually finally replaced Carrick. Like, you know, the donut hole is gone. You know, we have Casemiro. And boy, what a beast he is, right? So the application is there. Like, you know, the mentality is there. The comeback spirit is there. This is kind of reminds me of the old Sir Alex Ferguson, right? Never say die. And this is what I feel that the fans are sort of taken on board. And it just saddens me that some ex-players and pundits and media, you know, don't really, like, you know, want us to move forward. Like, you know, just was looking the other day and I made a video about it and made a comment that, you know, Roy Keane, I love you to pieces. You're the greatest captain. You know, I respect you. But, you know, when you come out and say in the clip, in the heated debate, that I don't care what the fans are thinking. I don't care. Like, you know, that's kind of elite opinions. And for me, that's like, you're an influencer. You're like a legend of the club. You know, how many people are listening to you? But sorry, mate, you know, the club goes first. And we saw that with Ronaldo treatment. So for me, it's all about the team. The Galactico football is over. The commodity players that don't have a room in Ten Hag, and we clearly see, like, you know, application. If you don't perform, I don't give a shit. You know, if you, you know, if you come late, I sub you off. You know, those kind of things. So for me, the culture eats strategy for breakfast anytime. Like, you know, and it is just great to wake up every morning to feel that positive feeling. Like, you know, we are heading towards the right path. I mean, as football goes in cycles, we're seeing a paradigm shift. For instance, who expected Arsenal to do well, Newcastle. You see the likes what Mr. Ton was saying also, that you know, Liverpool is dropping down in pecking order. Chelsea, I don't believe they're gonna do well. Maybe top 4. Tottenham, definitely not. So I agree with Mr. Ton to say we are Manchester United. We have a winning mentality. We should be going for, not settling for top 4, but at least we will finish in the top leagues. And fallacy to say that what happened 2016, that Leicester won the league, nobody expected Leicester to win. So nobody's expecting us to do anything, but the ball is round, anything can happen. You know, we play to the end of May and we will see, you know, but I'm positive. Yeah. That's my say.
No, thanks, Mick. I mean, that was a bit of an example of hogging the ball there, mate, but well done, you've passed it.
Thanks.
No, really valid point. I mean, in terms of the culture change, it's a really good topic, and John, we'll come to you on this. I mean, I do agree. I noticed, just, you know, I wasn't at the game at Old Trafford at the Spurs game, but I noticed even on the TV, and I was at the Europa League game against Ammonia.
So was I, mate.
and it was a bit up and down. I mean, Old Trafford's been a weird environment this last 12 months. I was there like a few games last season. The Wolves game was one of the worst I went to, where it was just completely flat, and we lost that game 1-0 at home, and it was like real sort of down in the dumps. But like Spurs was seemed like an electric atmosphere where the fans could feel that we were turning this corner where we were starting to dominate. Okay, Spurs weren't the greatest. They were pretty shit at times, to talk pretty bluntly about it. But it's still Spurs. They're still sat third, and you know, it was a good result and a good performance. And you felt like the fans could see that We'll come on to Ronaldo and kind of the impact that's had, and as Mick said there, in terms of some of the comments that are coming from pundits, famous pundits, and now the fans have reacted to that in the past and supported it, and now maybe they're changing their attitude now. But do you feel like there's a bit of a culture switch, John, that needed to happen and is now happening with how we're looking at the team and how we're looking at the...
Yeah, definitely. I definitely noticed that. I think there's that feeling of if we have to get a result, we're capable of getting a result. Like we remember, it's not just the Tottenham game, it's also when we lost the opening game, or the opening 2 games, and then we played Liverpool third game. It's like obviously had the Glazers protest, and I was like, and none of us were thinking we're going to win this game and all that. But that performance, I think, perhaps set the tone. It's like, gosh, where did that performance come from? Particularly after the Brentford game the previous week, and then obviously we beat Southampton, we beat Leicester, and then unfortunately it was our last league game for a month, wasn't it, when we beat Arsenal 3-1, and it just had that atmosphere, the Arsenal game, like when walking off the pitch, we thought it feels like United game back to some degree. Then obviously, unfortunately, the Queen died, we didn't play a league game for about 4 weeks, and then obviously we had the City game, but I think what Ten Hag has instilled into the players, and it's pleasing that obviously we drew 0-0 to Newcastle, a gutting result. Then we played Tottenham next game, and I felt confident going into that game. This team has shown me that we are capable of putting in a performance after disappointing performance, and obviously I think that Tottenham game, in terms of like a general overall performance, in terms of control, it's the best game we've seen in a long time. I mean, if we could finish our chances, we would have battered them maybe 5-6 or whatever. But I thought as a performance, we showed that fight. And then you look at the Chelsea game, it's just that belief in the team that we should have been ahead at half time. And then obviously the game stalled in the second half and that. But again, you look at the equaliser, we conceded a penalty late, and we didn't deserve to lose that game in terms of like the general performance. But it was that attitude that you concede in the 87th minute, a ground we don't tend to do well at usually. And then it's that belief we're going to get a goal here, we're going to push to the end. And obviously the celebration, you just look at it, and I think we all roared. It's probably our biggest celebration we've had in a long time, even though it was an equaliser. And I just think he's instilled that confidence to the team, that never give in attitude. You fight until the end. Even though Ammonia was a dodgy game, at Old Trafford, we kept fighting. We got that in second minute winner, didn't we? Newcastle, obviously, Rashford missed that chance, but it was a chance that even when you think it's over, a moment could happen. And I just think that it's that self-belief. And obviously we still need to make improvements, of course we do. But I just think that the ethos, the team, there's a togetherness. And, you look at the Ronaldo thing, and this is what, you got to admire what Ten Hag did. He just said, right, he's training with the under-21s. The rest of the team is going to prepare for it. And you see the celebration, or that it's a team collective, and it was almost like Ronaldo isn't there kind of thing. Obviously, I do think he'll probably come back over the next couple of weeks, maybe start playing, maybe. Obviously, there needs to be a decision about whether you keep in January and that kind of thing. But for the next 3 weeks, there might come to some agreement. You give us your role for 3 weeks, you go to Wilcombe, then maybe in January we sell you. But in terms of that whole team ethic, it's not about individuals, and it's about the team ethic, and that's been the biggest change we've noticed this season.
Yeah, definitely. It's just the whole atmosphere it seems loads better, doesn't it? And like you say, we'll come to the Ronaldo thing, but I think, has he been kind of a catalyst or an example of what we needed, unfortunately, to get over for the fans to move on? He's a prime example of a legend of the club. But if he's even thrown his dummies out and his teddies out the pram, then and the fans aren't getting behind that's an opportunity for us to turn a corner, isn't it, as a fan base and as a club. But again, we'll come to Ronaldo.
I just want to echo what John is saying in a way. I'm sorry for jumping in, but doesn't it feel that the old swagger of United is back again? Like, that confident, that belief, that swagger, it's getting back, even to Theatre Dreams to Old Trafford. Like, I just feel it, right? And that's what I was saying with the hairdryer, the swagger, and what I was thinking, who is operating in behind is actually McLaren, who is number 2 to Sir Alex. So
I think it's really. I mean, I totally hope it's on that direction, and I think for the last couple of games it seems that way. And I think in terms of how he's dealing with certain aspects of the club, definitely. But I think we're very early days, but it's looking extremely positive, isn't it? Like it's going in that direction. Still a long way to go. I think the Maguire situation, the captaincy, still a few aspects big aspects that he needs to kind of sort of address. But no, he's definitely getting it in the right direction. Alex, we'll come to you, mate. I have a general view of it if you want as well. But just in terms of kind of, and I'll come to you, Mr. Ton, on this one as well after Alex. But the kind of punditry aspect, Mick mentioned that, and I watched some of the sort of observations from sort of Roy Keane and stuff afterwards, which I completely disagreed with. And I think again that was an opportunity for the fans to go, hold on a minute, what's going on here? The legends are saying these things. We had Scholesy say it a few games ago about Anthony, giving him is it one trick pony. They've had previous pundits calling out Sancho. Okay, Sancho's been pretty poor, but do we not feel like these legends? I mean, it's been said before, but they're sort of getting a little bit too involved at times when the club doesn't need it, especially when we sort of seemingly turning a bit of a corner. Is it not just kind of bad press for, especially coming from legends of the club and people and guys who are supposed to love the club inside out? It's a bit of an odd thing that you're hearing from people like Roy Keane and Paul Scholes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a serious issue that we seem to have more than, it might just be me, but I don't see other clubs having other clubs have, ex-players on punditry, and I don't seem to see them always trying to, it feels like they're trying to push a negativity onto us that there doesn't seem to be at the moment. Because, you talked about sort of that togetherness, that team spirit, and it's there and you can see it. And I think one of the most crucial elements of that was, I think the Everton game was quite important. Because, you think about earlier in the season, the Brentford game, we fell behind early. Yeah, it was a mistake, but, we fell behind early and then we just sort of collapsed. It was just like the whole team just sort of went, oh, well, we're 1-0 down after 10 minutes. That means we've lost the game. And that seemed to be sort of against Everton, that could have been a sort of maybe a watershed moment, because obviously it was just coming back, or it was coming on the back of the Man City defeat. But instead of sort of let our head go down after an early goal, we responded, we fought back. I think it was something like our first away win coming from behind in like a year, which is the most ridiculous stat you've ever heard in your life. But that felt like a sort of key moment. But yeah, it feels like the positivity is back, and it feels like for some reason our ex-players, legends of the club, seem to, rather than be glad that there's positivity around the club again, seem to want to create a negativity, and that's, I thought Roy Keane at the weekend was just, it was baffling, actually, if I'm being honest. It was completely baffling, because with respect to him, Rio Ferdinand earlier in the day coming out with the whole, Ronaldo can do what he likes, that didn't surprise me too much, because Ferdinand's he's gone towards more the sort of fan cam, sort of trying to be reactionary for his hits and all that. That seems to be more where Ferdinand's going. But with Roy Keane, I thought, he was the ultimate professional, and it's like he can talk what he likes. If a player did that under his captaincy, you wouldn't have needed Fergie to deal with them. Roy Keane would have killed them. At the end of that, can you imagine? Roy Keane would have absolutely murdered the person. And instead, he's coming out with some stuff about, what was it? Ronaldo scores you these goals and, he scores a goal every 2 games. And it's like, yeah, maybe 5 years ago he does. Like, he doesn't seem to have separated Ronaldo from before and Ronaldo from now. And I don't know with Roy Keane whether what he said was influenced by his own exit from United.
That's what I was thinking too.
And I don't know whether it was the element of he was starting to sort of slow down. He was starting to sort of slow down. He wasn't quite the player he once was. He didn't seem to be able to accept that. And then, obviously what happened, and he felt, and still feels, because he's never forgiven Fergie, is that he feels that he was wronged. He feels that he was wrongly pushed out of the club.
Absolutely.
When his performances hadn't reached that, when they probably had. It was getting towards that point where he needed edged out.
It did seem a little bit as if there was some personal feelings towards it.
Felt more.
I think you talked. Sorry to interrupt. You touched on with Roy Keane. Of course, he went to Celtic after, didn't he? I think Fergie wrote in his autobiography. He watched an Old Firm game. I think it was either maybe the February or March after he left United, and he watched his performance in midfield, and at that point his legs had gone completely. They were running rings around him basically, and of course at the end of the season he had the testimonial and he retired from football, didn't he? So I think I do think there are similarities between Ronaldo and obviously Roy Keane, because obviously he was a brilliant professional and ultimate professional up until the very end.
I can say that exactly what Alex said. I did the conclusion yesterday because I analyzed it, and I could not believe what Roy Keane was saying. For me, he's a legend. He's my captain. But I was doing my analysis. I posted a video yesterday, and the only conclusion I can come to is exactly what Alex was saying. He was comparing his own exit, his own treatment. And he was taking this person, so that's why he was kind of backing Ronaldo. But at the end of the day, read the room,
I think that's it. Mr. Tom, we'll come to you on this one, mate. Sorry, you've been there quiet, man. You've been there quiet on this one. Come on. I want to get your take on this in terms of just general punditry vibes. I think. Look. I mean, I'll give you my view on it, Mr. Tonington. I've kind of been on the fence in previous seasons. Maybe last season, even though I agreed with Scholesy, like, for example, quite a lot of the time. I don't want to bring Scholesy into it or even Roy Keane, but I think generally, like, people's views on the club in terms of there's people on TV that we all admire and stuff. It's big when those people, they say. So, what do you think? Because I think, as Mick said there, there's a culture change happening now. You can see it. It's coming in. Ten Hag setting that, and you've been a big advocate for that. So, what's your kind of general feelings and stuff in terms of some of the comments that come out from people like Roy?
Well, it's hard. People like Ferdinand, I get it. He's in a WhatsApp group with Ronaldo. That's his boy. That same reason for a long time he didn't speak about Oli to right towards the end. Roy Keane, on the other hand, Roy Keane's just a bit of a strange one. I'll be honest with you. Normally, it's like, don't you see that the team's more important than the individual? I don't get it. Like, you was a manager as well. Like, the team is always more important than the individual. What is this individual right now in the way that the manager wants to play? And I think some of it is education. So, like, for me, I know a lot about the manager. So I know he's got a 5-second press rule when you lose the ball, things like that. So I know that, he wanted to win the ball in a certain way. So is Ronaldo going to do that? No. Is he a pressing monster? No. The manager made it clear. I think it was, what game was it? He spoke about Rashford being dynamic, right? And what he offers. And when he came on in the Newcastle game, he offered us the movement, and then it allowed other players to have space. Obviously, he was directing, the guy that was before him on the pitch before him. But that's very important right now in the way that this manager wants to play. Unfortunately, Ronaldo's at the age now where can he do it? And I said this. I always said this was going to be a challenge from day one. I said it in before pre-season.
And that's why, just on what you said there, that's why we got goals from Bruno, wasn't it, against Spurs, in terms of what Rashford was.
Yeah. But that's why I don't get Roy Keane as a leader, as a captain, as a manager. Why would you talk about the individual, not the team? I'm a bit baffed about that. But then saying that, Roy Keane he always speaks his mind, innit? So it's like capturing that. He always speaks his mind. So if that's what's on his mind, he's going to speak it. That's Roy Keane for you, isn't it? But then as a manager and as a leader, you would think the team, the collective is more important, man. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, because Neville was saying that the team right now, so so I find it weird. I just feel like some of the pundits just need to just relax. Because a lot of them before, if you remember, everybody wanted Poch. Every single manager, every single one of them said they don't know much about Ten Hag. They want Poch. He knows the league and knows the Prem. Nobody really any of the ex-players. I did not hear one of them say they wanted Ten Hag, and none of them even knew anything about Ten Hag, and they all admitted that. So,
but do you think we're pulling away?
As we go along.
Do you think we're pulling away from the general sort of the general headline word though, in terms of what these pundits are saying, and now what the fans are backing? Like we're backing, like we're sort of ignoring that noise, aren't we? Really, and going with the, and following the manager a little bit, aren't we? On that. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I agree. It doesn't help that everything you turn your TV on, there's an ex-Man United player on somewhere, whether it's ESPN
Stop listening.
or BN Sports. I don't listen to that. No one, trust me. I'm not like that. But it doesn't help. Obviously, they're always there talking about United. Do you know what I mean? Sky Sports, you name it, they're there. It's either ex-United players, ex-Chelsea players, or ex-Liverpool players.
I couldn't take them seriously. I went to the Europa League game the other week, and I saw Scholesy and I was in the south stand, and Scholesy and Hargreaves were in the box at the top, and just before half time, they were getting the makeup done in the glass.
Here's the thing, gents. What you will keep forgetting, that it's scripted. Of course, they're getting paid to be grumpy. Graham Souness to have this opinion, for Gary Neville to have this heated debate with what's his name? What's his face? Scous's face. I can't. My brain is cooked right now.
I just personally, I think it just shows that these ex-footballers don't all have it to be great leaders and managers.
But another thing. Sorry, another
managers as well. Like most, if you think about most of them in the sense like Roy Keane as a manager couldn't, like it was almost like he could. I think part of his issue as a manager was that he couldn't understand how players that weren't as good at it couldn't understand why players weren't able to do what he used to be able to do. And it's like, well, because you're managing Ipswich. They're not going to be of the same.
We did a good job at Sunderland, though. In fairness,
and Sunderland as well. But either way, they're not at the level that he played at, and he didn't seem to be able to sort of understand that there's just different levels. And I think there's also the element of his go-to is anger, and sometimes anger's great, but sometimes you do need to just be calm in situations. It's not always a case of shouting.
I think very, very good players who brought the best out of themselves and individuality have had to be selfish a little bit, and then that's not a bad thing as a footballer. You have to be arrogant, you have to be selfish, but better leaders.
I remember, not many of them not many clubs are calling for their services, are they?
No.
No one's touching Gary Neville after his spell for Valencia, are they?
The thing is,
at the other hand, sorry for jumping in here, but at the other hand, I watched the ESPN FC, and you have the likes of Craig Burley, which is the most pro Liverpool fan cam channel ever, and the freaking Craig Burley and the Co. Yeah, but
I'm with you.
They slag United in everything they do. But when they are starting to talking about that, watch out for United, they're playing good football. Why can't these ex-players and pundits do the same?
I actually thought Gary Neville, to be fair to Gary Neville, I think he was, overall quite right. I thought he was actually okay with the Ronaldo thing. I was expecting more of him agreeing maybe with Roy Keane, but he was sort of actually
spot on.
he was spot on, just kind of going, the reality is they're better now without him. And that's just the reality of that situation. And if Ronaldo's not willing to accept a reduced role, then he's going to have to be moved on. But Roy Keane, as we already touched upon, seemed for it to become personal. And because he feels that he was wrongly forced out of United, he clearly feels that Ten Hag is wrongly forcing Ronaldo out of United. He clearly feels there's sort of a symmetry there when there's not.
But it must become a time as a player that you realize, okay, your mind is there, your competitive mind is there, but your body's not following. You're not the same as it used to be. There's a reason why the manager is not picking you. First of all, you didn't have a preseason. Second of all, you didn't buy into the whole team spirit. And what you did right now, I hope it comes back and he got a lesson. I hope that he, you know what I mean,
we've
comes back
seamlessly transitioned into Alex's topic here, which is Ronaldo and whether he's got a future at United. So, I mean, Alex, do you kind of want to, and then we'll kind of run right through Mr. Ton and to Mick and to John on Ronaldo. I mean, we've kind of already sort of, like I say, merged into it anyway. But I mean, do you want to sort of have you all say on it and your view on it first, and then we'll have a run round?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think obviously going on from what Mick was saying about, he was saying about sort of Ronaldo hopefully coming back in, and he's got to surely accept that he's not the player. I think that's part of the issue. I think the thing is Ronaldo's, and it's what's made him as good as he is, but what's made him as good as he is his mentality, his ego, if you will. And I think there was always that question of when Father Time comes knocking on his door and goes, "You're going to start to slow down, mate. You're not going to be the player you were." How was Ronaldo going to cope with that? And I think the answer is terribly. He doesn't seem. I genuinely think, and I could be wrong here, but I think with Ronaldo's mentality, I genuinely think he still thinks he's the best player in the world. I don't think he's sort of accepted that he's just not capable of what he once was. And that's why this sort of, he's starting to become petulant. He's starting to become, throwing the toys at the pram. I mean, what he did against Tottenham was a professional football equivalent of picking your football up and going home when you're a kid. You're not happy, so you pick your ball up.
Millions of people viewing that.
Yeah, that's what it was sort of the equivalent of. And the thing is, if he was willing to accept the reduced role, he'd actually be a perfect player in the sense of mentoring young players and sort of that option off the bench and, being able to come in for a Europa League game and, for come in here and there. He would be sort of the perfect player for that. But it's becoming quite clear that he's not willing to accept that role for whatever reason. And I think it is linked into to do with his mentality and his ego and maybe just not being willing to accept yet that he just isn't capable of what he once was. His brain's the brain's still ticking along, but his feet just aren't quite going quite as quick.
His brain's 2 yards ahead of
his brain's 2 yards further ahead while his body's still slower. And, he's obviously not willing to accept that yet, in which case I think my view would be that the club, hopefully we can try and bring him back in between now and the World Cup and sort of use him while we have him here and there. But I think the best thing for everybody is come January to try and find a mutual ending to what has unfortunately become a bit of a bitter divorce, which is sad because of who he is and what he's done. And he'll always be loved at United, but I wouldn't want him to stay longer and for this to get worse and for his reputation to possibly be sort of soured in any way or any more, than it's possibly already been done. So I think it's probably best for the club and for Ronaldo to sit down and just sort of, work out the terms of mutual, respectful split.
I think that's probably. I mean, it's been a bit of a. I mean, like you said there, when sort of age comes knocking, in the Premier League, I think it can be a sudden slap in the face in terms of how abrupt it can be. I mean, the league itself again this season, and the Premier League sort of ebbs and flows in terms of its competitive nature. We've had seasons in the past where City and Liverpool run away with the league, and the rest of the league sort of like way behind. This season, it's back to what needs to be, where it's so competitive. And you can just see that Ronaldo is not able to be at that kind of pace for long periods of the game. Mr. Ton kind of mentioned it in terms of what Ten Hag's wanting from Ronaldo, and what Ronaldo wants from Ronaldo is different. He wants goals. He wants to be that player that he was probably last season, where he's chipping in for last minute goals, and the other team's not particularly playing well, but Ronaldo's getting on the score sheet, and that's not productive for the team, really. And
one can argue also that the pressing game is not his game. And if you look at professional athletes, they always quit when they're on top. So just why push on like Zlatan, like till you're 40, right? You ruin your own legacy. So I love him to pieces, but at the end of the day, you got to look at what's best for the team, and look for your own legacy. Like I can understand you want to score goals, you want to break records, but then you become only about yourself, not about the team,
Yeah, definitely. Mr.
So
Tom,
what's
what's your views on not just on Ronaldo, but I still hope that he I don't think it will, but I still hope that his attitude will change, that he's still got a massive part to play. There's still a lot of cup games to play, hopefully. We're in a cup for a long run. League Cup, the FA Cup, obviously the Europa League. So there's still a lot to, regardless of the Premier League, there's still a lot to go at, stuff that hasn't started. So do you feel like Ronaldo can play a massive part in the season still, providing he gets his head around it and figures something out with Ten Hag, or do you think, no, it's all done and January needs to come and Ronaldo needs to leave? What's your general feelings?
It was interesting. I just watched something from just a little clip from Rio Ferdinand, I think something he done today. And the way he was talking sounded like he spoke to the because obviously he does talk a lot, you've got a good relationship. And he was sort of hinting at, has the conversation with the club and with Ronaldo been like, oh, you're going to be a bit part player this season, or you're going to be a backup, or you're going to be the main guy? Has that conversation happened? Because I'm pretty sure if it didn't happen, he wouldn't act how he acted. But regardless, there's no excuse. I don't understand. There's no excuse for the way he acted, in my opinion. And no one is going to be first choice, second choice. The manager made it clear he's evaluating his first 11 and he's not there yet. He made that clear at the start of the season on an interview with Sky Sports. So that's for everybody to fight for their place now. Obviously, I get it. Ronaldo's stature in the game, reputation, he would, in his head, ideally would warrant a starting berth. But this manager has sort of come in, walked through the door, and no one warrants a starting berth. Do you know what I mean? You've got to earn that right. So I personally, I said it in before pre-season kicked off. Said it at the end of last season. Ten Hag's biggest problem is going to be Ronaldo, and I also think that we should get rid of Ronaldo in the summer because he's going to cause a lot of problems, and we're there now. Ronaldo's a very old-fashioned. He's like anyone that gets to a certain age. His way works, and it's worked for him. He ain't going to change and be systematic and all this, and he ain't doing it. You can see it when we're playing it. It just doesn't make sense. I'll be honest, it doesn't make no sense. Ronaldo, he's won more than Ten Hag, and he said Ronaldo's got a very firm mentality, a very, very firm mentality. And I remember just the first episode of the Juventus documentary, and he was outside. I will never forget this. He was outside. And they asked him, why are you outside? Because I know my body better than the people, the physios and all that. I know my body. I know what to do. I'm getting sunlight. Like, that's how he is. He knows better than everyone else. So that was all. This is always going to be the situation. Unless you, and I said it on a channel then, unless you feed his ego, make him the captain. You're the main man. Unless you feed his ego, it was always going to go like this. That's what happened. Look how much reports last season there was of him saying that he should get the captaincy. Harry Maguire, do you know what I mean? Come at the team, all this stuff, and that is the Ronaldo show, innit? Just get rid of him, man. So we just focus on the collective. I'll be honest.
What about the
I feel
reports
like
coming out
there's-
today? Then January, like Chelsea is going for him, Todd Bowley. You think there's any legs in it, Mr. Ton?
Yeah, of course it has legs in it. Tom Bolly wanted him. He's an American guy in it. They
Doesn't
believe
know anything.
and the stars. So no, he knows thing, but they just believe in the commercial value as well. Innit? That's just they do think of commercial and how much sells, and that's just how
These things same or
basketball,
less. Yeah.
NFL, yeah, that's just how they are, innit? It's commercial value as well. So they know they will get and it might work. Nobody knows. It might work. They might have it so like nobody actually knows, and it was reported that's why he got rid of the last manager, because he really didn't want Ronaldo. So like nobody knows, innit? Let's see what happens, man. But I think for all parties, it's especially leaves the club. It's otherwise it's not going to get any better, because even like his statement, he didn't really apologize. Really, do you know what I mean? It's
No,
not going to
not
get
really.
any better.
No,
at the
it's
end of
not.
the day, at the end of the day, we need to build a team around the manager, and Ronaldo signing was not for the long term. Like maybe he was a shirt seller from the Glazers, the fear that he was going to City. But I think I agree with you, Tom, that we need to shape a squad that's going to challenge for 1, 2, 3 years from now, and we see. It's a Ten Hag squad at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, I see. I mean, John. I'll come to John Mick, 'cause I feel like you've had a good say on that one already. But,
Yes. I'm just passionate. So sorry.
No, you're all right, mate. Obviously, John, you've probably been in a more fortunate sort of position and a more experienced position than most of us on this panel, mate. After probably seeing Ronaldo play back in the day, and then seeing him play again as an older man. So you're better placed to say this than most. I mean, what's your sort of personal feelings on the situation in terms of kind of how he's carried himself over the last 2 years and where he's at now?
Yeah, right. I mean, like you say, I remember the first spell with Ronaldo, and I remember being on shows with Mitton, and that my view was that I probably would have kept it, although I started to change my mind slightly the last couple of weeks of transfer window. But for me, with Ronaldo, I remember back in 2008 that we obviously won the league and the Champions League, and he wanted to go for Madrid then, and that's when Fergie said 1 more year. And basically it took him a couple of months to get going that season. He was slow at the start of that season. He only had a couple of goals by the end of September or something. But then later on in the season, he started to score, a load of goals. You had the goals against Arsenal, Porto, a load those games. And I thought something similar might happen this season if we kept him. But I do personally think it comes down to his role's acceptance. Obviously, Alex mentioned he's capable of brilliant moments. He still is capable of the odd brilliant moment here and there. For me, with him, if you are going to keep him, I personally think he won't accept this role. But you got to look at saying he can still play a role, but it's perhaps coming off the bench, in Premier League games, like if you need a goal 20, 30 minutes. You look at the Newcastle game, for example, Ronaldo came off for Rashford, didn't he? For me, it should have been the other way around. You should have perhaps started Rashford up top, and if it was still 0-0, you bring Ronaldo on, and perhaps Ronaldo would have scored that header at the end, and I think that's what I think Ronaldo might still be capable of, but I don't think he's good enough to be starting every league game and so on. And it also comes down to the argument, even last season, why is he offering the team if he's not scoring? Because he only scored 2 this season. And for me, it's either he's got to accept he's going to have a bit part role coming off the bench in the league and that. And I do think if that is agreed, then he will probably score a few goals off the bench this season. But if he's not willing to accept that, I think it's a case of maybe agreeing to sell him in January and perhaps saying, well, give you all next 3 weeks. You got the World Cup coming up. If you have a good tournament, we might be able to make some money in January. So ultimately, I just think you got to come to an agreement between Ten Hag, Ronaldo, the agents, Murto and that, and hopefully that gets resolved. But if he doesn't accept his role, I would consider selling him in January, maybe bringing in another striker.
Yeah, it's. I think that unfortunately the saga's come to a bit of an end, hasn't it? And I think there's just been many examples of where he's not carried himself in great esteem throughout the time that we've had him back, and that's a shame. Obviously, the incident with the phone. I think the other times where he's not got on with, and even Ranić last season, where he was a bit upset when he was benched a couple of times, which is pretty rare when he was benched last season. But yeah, it's come a time now, hasn't it, where I think we need to put a little bit of a cap on the bottle that has been Ronaldo. Mr. Ton, I don't know if Mr. Ton's there, but I kind of wanted to spark up a topic, which was, or he is there. It was good. I want to spark up a topic regarding just in the final sort of like 10 minutes or so regarding Martinez. Obviously, another sort of unbelievable performance over the weekend, over the last week or so, to be fair. Really turned into a player which we all expected and hoped for. Obviously, there was a lot of, again, negative punditry regarding certain aspects of his game and his height, and which a lot of us as United fans just ignored and backed him. And thankfully, he's coming through those games against big opposition and big players and coming through the other side. And, I personally feel he's up there for a shout at the captaincy in the new year. I'll be honest, I think that's something Ten Hag's got to address after the World Cup. Got to make a decision on that. I know he's got Bruno there, but I don't feel like Bruno's really the right full-time man for the role, for the job. Going into next season, I think he needs somebody with a little bit more kind of a level head and a bit more about them, and I think that's Martinez. And just want to talk about him with the rest of the panel, and equally talk about Varane. Obviously, Varane picking up another little knock over the weekend, which is disappointing. But I think obviously him and Varane have been an unbelievable partnership when they have played together, and I think that's something that has to be key to the end of the season. Mr. I just want to come to you on this one because I know you're a massive Martinez fan, and I just wanted to get your views, kind of how brilliant he's been and how important he is to this team.
Well, I'm not a massive fan of him. I just know of him. I wanted Timber.
Oh, well, I've sold him. You've sold him down the river now.
No, but he has got good leadership qualities. I said it yesterday on the channel. I guess he beat all the leprechaun allegations. I guess he ain't going to jail for none of those allegations anymore. But yeah, I do see. I said it. If it's not Varane, because or Casemiro, a player that's won stuff in the game, and you can never argue with players that have won stuff in the game and been there and proven winners. I definitely said Lissandro will be next up because I saw when I forgot what game it was, and they was doing header drills, and you could see, and he was commanding the heading drills and was telling them where to be, and I was like, oh. And he'd only just come through the door, and I was quite shocked at that he's the one taking charge of that. And you see it on the pitch, him organising things and telling players things, and he's got that sort of, as Ten Hag called it, grinta, that temperament, that certain, as he was called, the butcher mentality. And I feel there's still a lot from him. The fans, United fans, haven't seen. 1 second, my daughter's here. That United fans haven't seen. I still. There's still a lot of things, like his passing, I feel like is not there yet at the level it was at Ajax. Like his ball playing abilities and driving into the centre midfield position and pinging out passes. We ain't seen that from him. But obviously once the team gels, I feel like that will happen. Like there's so much we haven't seen from him as a fan base. I have, obviously, but I'm saying as the fan base hasn't seen it from him. We're seeing more of his defending qualities at the moment. And what he does defending and organising things. And then when we get to that level where we are dominating teams, you're going to see his passing ability and the ability to go from centre back into midfield and then be like a centre mid, if that makes sense, especially when we step up that extra bit eventually. But I feel like it was probably, if I was rating the signings, I'll probably say he's been our best signing of the summer. I think it's arguably, people can now say Casemiro, but I'll definitely put Lissandro up there. Apart from the first couple games, even in those games, he didn't do much wrong. he's had a steady game. He's had a steady game, literally.
I've liked his. I mean, just before we start, I think we should all have a bring your kid to stream day, because my two will absolutely love that. So
I might have to adopt one then.
I'll have to start the show at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. No, it's. Do you know what I liked about him? As much as I mean, I've heard about Shaw talking about his ability on the ball. You know, he's good on the ball. You know, and that's important for a defender these days. You know, to be very competent on the ball. Obviously, a lot of managers now are looking at that from keepers. But for me, it's been his disrespect towards the bigger players in the league. Sometimes these bigger players can sort of get a little bit of this kind of ego and be put on this pedestal where they're untouched. You know, you look at Salah over the years, where it's almost like they've beaten you before you've even played, because they've got this kind of ego and this kind of aura around them. And you know, he's come in and he was obviously having a bit of a fracas with Mount the other day, and he was shoulder barging Salah the other week, and just things like that, where he's just been thinking, you know, I don't care if you're Harry Kane or your Son or your Salah or your Mount, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to show you what I'm about. And I just love that about him. I love that he's come in and he's gone, look, I don't care who you are and who you're playing for. I'm just gonna be this player that I've been at Ajax and stomp all over you. And I just love it. I just think that's just what we've missed. That kind of, I hate to say it, I'm going to say it, but that kind of Vidic mentality, where it's that kind of no nonsense attitude, which I think we've missed from our back four a little bit. And obviously with Varane there, he's providing that little bit of calmness next to him. So it's just been brilliant. I think that's been something we haven't had for a long, long time. But brilliant, Mr. Ton. I'll let you take your little one maybe to bed if you need to do that. I'll give you a second to do that. But Mick, come to you on Martinez.
Martinez is a beautiful story. So basically, he came from the emerging domestic market. Was discovered by Jonathan Diarte, who put an arm around the shoulder. So people need to understand that South Americans, like, they all play with passion. You know, it's all corazon. It's all about become somebody. You don't have that privilege to come like we do. Like, we have everything on food on the table. So nobody believed in him because of his height, obviously. But the artist saw him as a ball carrying ability, very aggressive. But it's all, what he told me, is about mental application at the end of the day. So the story to come from Newell Old Boys to go to Justicia Defensia like an on loan, to go to Ajax 2019, to be developed by Erik Ten Hag, and to become the player that he's today, it shows that the application is all about passion. It's all about mental agility, right? So it doesn't surprise me, when everyone was slagging off to say, look, what's going to Hobbit do? But his aerial defensive is just there. And his mental strength is 0 to 10. I mean, it's just there, right? So at the end of the day, it comes down to the fighting spirit and how he plays. And you saw that during the celebrations. The Casemiros, the Martinez's, the pure, South American passion. And this is kind of rubbing off on the rest of the team. I did a football agent talk show, like the first episode with Jonathan Diarte, the second is coming out. So I've learned a lot about Martinez over the past. So for me, that, so proud as punch to see, people coming from the emerging market to Eredivisie to come to the big stage, from grassroots to big stage. And that proves that, in the future, in the signings, we need to look more on the grassroots stage, because just because you have a price tag of 70 million and you have a name doesn't mean that, you have that heart to play, And yeah, I'm just proud of Punch, because I think the signings that he's done over the summer is definitely Ten Hag signings. You can see clearly it's rubbing off. Everyone is playing for each other. He's in the beast in the back. He's not having it. He pocketed Kane. He pocketed Mason Mount. He pocketed a lot of people. So we're talking about a serious defender, right? Without that height. So that's just super excited about it. As I said, we are getting close to see, in the future, partnership like Rio and Vidic, to be honest. And also Varane can be a contender for captaincy.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he's definitely up there. He started off well, and like I say, he's got a long way to go. But I just like these mentality. I really do, like you said there, Mick. John, we'll come to you on it. I mean, is he going to be up there with some of the best that we've had? You know, the Bruces, the Pallisters, the Stams, the Vidiches. You know, over the years.
Well, over time will tell, really. I know Pallister didn't have the best start the first couple of years, but then he got a lot better as Sam went on there. But yeah, he certainly brings a grittiness to our defence and that, you know, and it's like, I think Mick mentioned the South American, that grittiness and all that. It's an Argentinian thing. They tend to have that grittiness, that fire. Even there's that kind of like rebellious attitude about them. You know, like the way like it wasn't just the tough tackles. You know, like when he was shoving players and that kind of thing. And I just think that he has brought great stabilities back for him, and Varane have obviously had a really good partnership. And I mean, Stu is usually on them with the secret to a successful partnership as centre halves. One's got to be the aggressive one, you know, the one who breaks and be willing to get tackles, get booked and everything. And and the other centre half tends to hold back a bit more, and only really makes the tackle if they have to. Who kind of thing, and that's obviously what Varane does. But I do think it's brought steel to our back line. I think, like Mr. Ton said, we will begin to see him get better in terms of like his passing, which has been noticeable at times, but it's going to get better as time goes on. And obviously, there's no secret to it. The last few games that we've got better because of Casemiro as well. I think he's been the other signing, you know, brilliant signing that we made and all that. And I personally think it slowly but surely he might start to become our best signing this summer because he's just bringing that control to the midfield. You see this in the Chelsea game. It's like an artist at work, isn't it? The way he retains the ball and passes it when to do. We haven't had that in years,
But
really.
He keeps it simple. That's the thing.
He keeps it simple. And he'll receive the ball and the pressure, then ping the ball. You know, I think Match of the Day did a player watch on him, seeing what he did. It's just like he does the things which you don't notice, but are so important. And I just think that, and we also look more solid defensively with him there because obviously he guards the back four as well. And there are times to push up, but there's also times to, you know, cover your back and everything. And we look so much better, made so much harder to beat. But I think in time will Martinez be one of the best. Like I say, it's too early to tell, but he's obviously shut up some of the pundits and that. And interestingly, I was listening to the Newcastle game on radio, and interestingly, Jonathan Woodgate was the commentator. I know he wasn't the greatest player there ever was, but he was one of the first ex-professionals who used to play centre half, and he was saying, yes, he is short, but he makes up for it with everything else. Like, you know, and he's been the only person, ex-professional, who plays in that position who's actually said that. Hopefully, he was saying it during the Newcastle game on the radio.
He's number 2 to Carrick now, isn't he? At Middlesbrough as well, I heard today. So
it's called mana in Spanish.
Yeah.
Spirit, mana. You know, fighting spirits.
Yeah.
Alex, we'll come to you, mate. Obviously, it's 10 minutes past the hour now, so we've had it's flown, to be quite honest. So we'll come to you, mate, on the Martinez thing. Cheers for that, John. Just in terms of how you feel Martinez has been so far, and how important you think he is to our kind of season.
Yeah, I think one thing that we can say is that most of Ten Hag signings, if not all of them, have been successful. You know, you think of the impact Eriksen's had, whatnot. You know, so far they've all been successful. Martinez has just been. He really has been the sort of, you mentioned the game against Liverpool and the sort of shoulder barge on Salah. I think that was like 30 seconds into that game, and I said at the time, I thought that almost set the tone because it was just the shoulder buds and just sort of like, I'm up for this. And it was almost like the rest of the team were like, yeah, we're up for this too. And I felt like that sort of set the tone. It sort of got the crowd going because the crowd love it. You know, Old Trafford loves a bit of that. You know, I always remember Rooney used to always say that there was times where if it was dead flat, he'd fly into a challenge because he knew that folk would get up for it. And that, you know, and there's a bit of that with Martinez. And I think there definitely is, you know, in terms of captaincy, it's maybe too early maybe to talk about that. But there is that element of, you know, when Neville left, Vidic was the obvious man to take on the armband. And there is that element of Martinez seems like an obvious man. You know, you look at, you know, I got a message. I was messaging my dad earlier today, and he sort of said he described him as being like a little Rottweiler, which I thought was actually a good way of
true.
He's the butcher.
Yeah,
He's the butcher.
Exactly.
I call him the pit bull on a bone.
You look at him, and you think, no wonder Ten Hag wanted you to come with him. Like, why wouldn't you want him to come with you?
Well, that's that argument is that because originally we wanted Timber, and he declined. Are we better off now having got Martinez?
I think we've probably locked out in that sense. I think we can't complain about with Martinez. I think there is that element of, you know, what him and Varane have together is, you know, the thing is every good team is built on a good defense. And the thing is, having a good defense settles everything down. It settles everybody down, and it's also settled De Gea down because he seems more calm all of a sudden. You know,
I think when you look at Spurs, it's definitely a case for that.
You look at the game against Spurs and some of the passes he played. It looked like he almost had that sort of calmness to be like, all right, I'm going to try some of these passes now that maybe he didn't feel that he had that before. And, you know, there is that element of, for a goalkeeper, that it is very important when you've got a stable line in front of you, that it helps settle you down as well. That's the reality of it. You know, I think Varane will be a mess in the coming weeks, so we've got to try and cover for that. I'd imagine since Maguire's been out, that Lindelof will come in.
But Lindelof,
he's got the. I think his passing will be fine. He reads the game well, Lindelof.
Well, they did play well in defence. Everton, those two, didn't they?
Yeah, they played against Everton. They did well. So I've got no worries in that. Lindelof I'd sort of say he's almost like the perfect sort of backup centre back sort of thing because he is reliable. He's not, you know, he's nothing to write home about. You know, he's not fantastic, but he is reliable. You know what you're going to get from him. So that's fine. I think, you know, the main thing is hopefully that Varane doesn't get injured at the World Cup, or it doesn't. My worry is that he rushes himself back for the World Cup and then goes out for even longer. You know, if we can get Varane back for the second half of the season and keep him fit, then those two together will be crucial in that sense. But Martinez has just been, I mean, he's just. There needs to be somebody on Sky Sports to turn around to Jamie Carragher and go, so what are you going to say? Because Carragher seems to turn around and go, I think it was on the overlap a few weeks ago, and he got asked about him, and Carragher went, "Oh, it's too early to judge." And it's like, well, you were judging them after 2 games, so how is 11 too early?
Wait till he gets the player of the year.
His best mate, Salah, didn't he? Like, so I've been good.
He's a humble pie.
Tottenham weren't great, but I'm pretty sure at the end of that game, Lisandro Martinez got home, emptied out his pockets, and alongside his car keys and his wallet was Harry Kane. So, and that's what probably the second best striker in the league at the moment behind Haaland. So,
I mean, like when we speak about the top, we played all the top 6. Look at how he's pocketed some of those players like Salah and Kane, and him with Haaland, unfortunately. Maybe next year at Old Trafford. But yeah, it is interesting.
It's just so beautiful to see. Like, you know, we haven't seen it for a long time.
His energy levels are brilliant. Well, guys, it's we're nearly an hour and 15 in. It's been a quick hour and 15, and we've had some big talking points. So I mean, thank you. We've got 30 odd people watching. We've had up to 40 odd people watching at one point. So appreciate everybody's support tonight. It's been a really good turnout. So again, appreciate everyone's comments in the comments. You know, Jarvis, usual AFU member on there commenting, and Apex and some others in there. If I missed your name, I apologise, but appreciate you. We've obviously got a midweek game Thursday against Sheriff. Then we've got the Sunday game against West Ham. So there'll be preview shows, hopefully a preview show this Wednesday to talk about the Sheriff game, and hopefully we know there'll be some good reaction shows to that as well through the week. So we'll catch you all on there. So catch us on there as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and catch us in some other videos, and follow the guys on Twitter as well. So they've all got their handles there below their videos. So follow the guys on Twitter, because they all do some stuff outside of All for United. So follow the guys below. So yeah, we've got Mick, John, Alex, and Mr. Ton. I've been Reece, your host, and we'll catch you in the next one, guys. See you later.
Cheers.